Intellectual property, in simple terms, is the property that comes as a result of a creative mind. It involves new technologies, new solutions, new systems, or even improved systems, designs, artistic works, inventions, scientific works, among others. It is categorized into copyright on one hand, which protects artistic, literary, and scientific works. But we also have the other category of industrial property that protects trademarks, which are symbols of trade, and they include logos or any symbol that distinguishes your product from that of another, or your service from that of your competitor. They may be even sound marks, they may be scents, they may be visuals, designs, slogans, and so on. The other component of the industrial property category is patents, which protect new inventions in all industries. It must be new, it must not have been done anywhere in the world.
We have reached a point where our creative work is world-class. Anywhere in the world you go, you will find that Ugandan work is respected because of its quality. The second layer is, do we have the legal framework in place and the institutions that can help us with? If you go now on your Facebook page and you play a song by Rihanna, or if you run a break now and you play Rihanna's music, Facebook's algorithms will trip you. They will stop you because there's copyright protection. In terms of the legal and institutional framework, you have URSB, you have performers' rights societies, you have performing arts. What has been missing, in my view, is pooling this talent and matching the two. We've reached the point where the creative arts have now become a critical part of society. So I think that, if you ask me, at those three levels, we are ready.
The nature of agency business is such that you respond to a business problem and you put together your best brains and try and find the best creativity and the best strategies that solve that problem while competing with a number of other agencies. So it's actually encouraging to see the step that the government is taking in sort of formalizing this whole conversation around intellectual property and trying to make sure there are protections for the different creators. Beyond that, I think the more interesting conversation is going to be around awareness, both on the side of the creators, but also on the side of the users. In addition to having the law in place, I think we will be hoping that we see government moving in the direction of making sure that there's sufficient awareness of what this law is and why it is in place, so that everybody is sensitized and making the right decisions when using content online.
When we appreciate the intellectual property value chain, we will appreciate the purpose and the role of integrating intellectual property in every sector of our economy, because intellectual property is multi-sectoral, it's multidimensional, it relates to every aspect of life. And we are among the few countries in the world that provide now the use of intellectual property as collateral. So from that state of intellectual property protection, which is very key, then you can move to the market space. You can move to commercialization of your product. And what the viewers need to understand is that intellectual property is a private right. It is not a government property. It's like you owning your phone, your land. So when you make a report that intellectual property has been stolen or somebody is using your work without authorization, we soon into action and enforce.
We need to start treating music as a business. And the first thing is to recognize that you are the brand if you are the artist. I'm in the studio and I'm a songwriter. I have a producer who makes a beat. So we make a song together. So the question is, who owns the song? The reality is there's no set standard with it because it's based on a negotiation. However, what usually happens in the industry is we accepted that the songwriter will own 50% of the copyright and the producer will own 50% of the copyright. If those are the splits that you've agreed on, and as I said, they are actually negotiable, these splits. A CMO has relationships with the different online platforms for streaming, the likes of Apple, Spotify, Deezer, the list goes on. And with all of these different elements, there's royalties there, which the CMO will collect on your behalf and make sure that whenever your content or your copyright is used, you get your royalties due. We need to also realize that music is a driver. The brand is important. You, the artist, are the brand, and you use music to attract people to your brand. You must always remember this. You need to know your morals as an artist. What do you believe in? But also, more importantly, what don't you believe in?
Uganda Performing Rights Society is a very important instrument to the Copyright Administration. And as we speak, if I release a song, like today I released my first single, in the next 1 month, I should be collecting over 100 million.
The influencer market itself is still a work in progress. It is a relatively new sort of phenomenon. And you notice that from brand managers to the influencers themselves, everybody is sort of still trying to figure it out. There's a category of people who are on social media. They have YouTube channels with a few hundred or a few thousand subscribers, and they get some views, and they put in effort, they do some good content, and then they want brands to be able to come and leverage that audience. There are other influencers, like the more celebrity influencers like Waiki Benda, who will have that huge following already, and just by making one post they will have immediate impact. But I think the question that relates to today's discussion is about the content that these influencers end up putting out and how that might expose potentially the brands to risk if the influencers themselves don't own this content. So broadly speaking, when brands recruit these influencers, more or less they provide the content that influencers put out. I think we have to backtrack a little bit to see how content online or on social media is owned or is governed.
The first is to help any artists understand the concept of value. Any artist whose work is not being monetized, I think needs some help.
And that is where the business starts. Commercialize, learn how to follow up your work, learn how to utilize, and know where to enforce, which buttons to press when you need your rights enforced.